I still remember the day I tried to plant my first tomato seedling in my backyard. I grabbed my trowel, positioned it over the spot I'd chosen, and pushed down with confidence. The trowel bounced back like I'd just tried to dig through concrete. My clay soil wasn't just hard, it was practically ceramic. I actually switched to a pickaxe that afternoon, and even then, I was sweating bullets just to carve out a hole big enough for one plant. If you've ever battled clay soil, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Fast forward 2 years, and I can slide my hands into that same soil like it's a bowl of chocolate mousse. The transformation didn't come from expensive amendments or back-breaking double-digging marathons. It came from coffee grounds and the unsung heroes of every garden, earthworms. Today, I'm sharing exactly how I turned my impossible clay into the kind of soil that makes other gardeners jealous, and how you can do the same thing without spending a fortune or throwing out your back. Before we get into solutions, let's talk about what makes clay soil such a nightmare. Clay particles are incredibly tiny, much smaller than sand or silt, and they pack together so tightly that there's almost no space for air or water to move through. When clay gets wet, it becomes sticky and unworkable. When it dries out, it forms a crust so hard you could practically bake pottery from it. This density creates a domino effect of problems. Plant roots can't penetrate the compacted soil, which means they can't access nutrients or water effectively. The lack of air pockets suffocates beneficial soil microbes. Water either runs off the surface or pools in low spots because it can't drain through. And working this soil is like trying to garden in modeling clay. It clumps to your tools, sticks to your boots, and leaves you frustrated before you've even planted anything. I spent my first season fighting this reality, and, well, I lost more plants than I care to admit. But here's the thing about clay soil. It's not actually bad soil. It's mineral-rich and holds nutrients well once you fix its structure. You just need to create pathways for air, water, and roots. And that's where my coffee ground earthworm revolution comes in. Every morning, I brew coffee, and every morning I used to throw those used grounds in the trash without a second thought. Then I learned that coffee grounds are essentially free organic matter that can transform soil structure. They're rich in nitrogen, which microorganisms need to break down organic material. They contain trace minerals like magnesium, potassium, and copper. And most importantly for clay soil, they have a texture that creates space between those tightly packed clay particles. I started collecting my coffee grounds in a 5-gallon bucket by my back door. Within a week, I had enough to start making a real difference in my garden. But here's the crucial part that many gardeners miss. You can't just dump raw coffee grounds onto clay soil and expect magic. Fresh coffee grounds can actually create a hydrophobic layer that repels water, and they can temporarily tie up nitrogen as they decompose. The real power comes when you combine them with earthworms. So, I also started asking my local coffee shops for their used grounds. Most places are more than happy to give them away. They're just trash to them after all. I picked up 5-pound bags twice a week from a cafe down the street. And suddenly, I had an endless supply of this soil-improving resource. The baristas thought I was a bit crazy at first, but when I brought them tomatoes later that summer, they became my biggest supporters. Earthworms, well, they're nature's rototillers, and they're absolutely obsessed with coffee grounds. When I first spread a layer of coffee grounds mixed with shredded leaves over my clay soil, I didn't see many worms. But I kept adding more organic matter, and within 3 months my garden was teeming with them. Every time I turned over a shovelful of soil, I'd count dozens of earthworms working their magic. Here's what those worms were doing that no amount of human effort could replicate. They were eating the coffee grounds and organic matter, processing it through their digestive systems, and leaving behind castings that are essentially perfect plant food. But even more importantly, they were tunneling. Each earthworm creates channels through the soil as it moves, and these channels remain even after the worm has moved on. These tunnels allow air to penetrate deep into the clay. They create pathways for water to drain, and they give plant roots highways to explore. The combination of coffee grounds and earthworms creates a feedback loop. The grounds attract and feed the worms. The worms break down the grounds and mix them into the soil while creating structure. The improved structure allows more beneficial organisms to thrive, which attracts more worms. Within a single growing season, you can see measurable changes in your soil texture. Let me walk you through exactly what I did, starting from that rock-hard clay. First, I stopped trying to dig deeply into the clay. Instead, I focused on building up. I spread a 2-inch layer of coffee grounds mixed with an equal amount of shredded leaves, straw, or aged compost directly on top of my clay soil. I didn't till it in or dig it under. I just laid it on the surface. Then I watered it thoroughly. This is important because it signals to earthworms that there's food available and it starts the decomposition process. Over the next few weeks, I added more layers whenever I had materials available. Coffee grounds one week, grass clippings the next, more shredded leaves after that. Each layer was about 1 inch or 2 thick, and I always watered after adding new material. Within the first month, I noticed the soil surface wasn't forming that hard crust anymore. By month 2, I could see earthworm castings on the surface. Those little coiled piles of dirt that look like tiny soft-serve ice cream cones. By month 3, when I pushed my trowel into the soil, it went in smoothly. The transformation was happening right before my eyes. I also started vermicomposting in bins to boost my earthworm population. I used coffee grounds as the primary food source for my worm bins, and when those bins got full, I'd harvest some worms and release them into my garden beds. This accelerated the process significantly. You don't have to do this, but if you're impatient like me, it helps. The proof isn't just in how the soil feels. It's in what grows in it. That first year after starting my coffee ground earthworm revolution, my tomato plants grew twice as large as the previous season. Their roots went deep instead of spreading out horizontally near the surface searching for oxygen. My carrots, which had been stunted and twisted before, grew straight and long. I pulled up a parsnip that was 18 inches long, something I never thought possible in my clay soil. The water retention changed dramatically too. Before, I'd water my garden and watch half of it run off into the lawn because the clay couldn't absorb it fast enough. After the transformation, water soaked in within minutes. But unlike pure clay that holds water in a death grip, my improved soil drained excess water through those earthworm tunnels, so roots never sat in soggy conditions. I also noticed I wasn't fighting weeds as much. The improved soil structure allowed me to pull weeds easily. They came out roots and all instead of breaking off at the surface. And the thick layer of organic mulch I maintained by continually adding coffee grounds and other materials suppressed many weeds from germinating in the first place. Not everything went perfectly, and I want to share the mistakes I made so you can avoid them. First, I initially added too many coffee grounds at once without mixing them with brown materials like leaves or straw. This created a matted layer that actually repelled water. The fix was simple: always mix your coffee grounds with carbon-rich materials at roughly a 1-to-1 ratio. Second, I learned that coffee grounds from espresso machines are different from regular drip coffee grounds. Espresso grounds are much finer and can compact more easily. So if you're getting grounds from a coffee shop that uses espresso machines, you really need to mix them with coarser materials and apply them in thinner layers. Third, I discovered that patience really is required. I wanted instant results, and honestly, I almost gave up after the first month when I didn't see dramatic changes. But soil transformation is a biological process, not a mechanical one. You're building an ecosystem, and that takes time. So stick with it for at least 3 months before you judge the results. Once you've built up a healthy earthworm population, you need to protect it. This means avoiding tilling, which chops up earthworms and destroys their tunnel networks. It also means being cautious with synthetic fertilizers, which can harm earthworms and the beneficial microbes they depend on. And it means maintaining a constant supply of organic matter on the soil surface, so your earthworms always have food available. I use a thick mulch layer year-round now. In summer, it's compost and coffee grounds. In fall, I add shredded leaves. In spring, I top up with more compost. This constant blanket of organic matter keeps my earthworms happy and working, and it means my soil continues to improve every single year. You don't need a special degree in soil science or a massive budget to transform clay soil. You need coffee grounds, organic matter to mix with them, patience, and a willingness to let earthworms do the heavy lifting. Start collecting your coffee grounds today. Ask your local coffee shops if you can pick up their used grounds. Begin building layers on your worst clay soil areas. This isn't just about improving your soil. It's about working with nature instead of against it. It's about building something that gets better every year instead of fighting the same battle every spring. And it's about growing healthier plants that produce more food or more beautiful flowers. All because you gave them the foundation they need to thrive. If this article helped you see a solution to your clay soil problems, subscribe to the Sensei channel for more real-world gardening strategies that actually work. Share this with a fellow gardener who's still swinging a pickaxe at their planting beds. Let's start a coffee ground earthworm revolution together, one garden at a time. Your future self, standing in fluffy soil next spring, will thank you for starting today.